This is Examples in Music for Module 25. 25.1 says define, identify, and label melodic sequence. This piece has an example of a melodic sequence. It is a famous hymn. The music will start right about here, and the sequence happens in the melody line right at the top. If we follow the melody line, we start in a C, then move up and downward through these eighth notes, and that entire figure repeats itself here, down a step, and then once again, starting here, as an example of a melodic sequence. We see the occurrence of the figure 3 times, which is the most often number seen and heard of melodic sequences. Objective 25.2 says define, identify, and label diatonic sequence and chromatic sequence. In terms of 25.2, this melodic sequence is also an example of a diatonic sequence, which means the notes stay within the key signature. The interval sizes remain the same. We start here, go up a second, down a second, down a second, down a second, and that's what happens in all these. However, the interval qualities are not exactly the same. For example, this B flat goes to an A, which is a minor second or a half step. When that occurs over here, this A goes to a G, which is a major second or a whole step. That means overall the notes are staying within the key signature, thus is a diatonic sequence. Objective 25.3 says define, identify, and label linear intervallic pattern. Review the learning resources to discover that a linear intervallic pattern involves the interval created between the bass voice and the soprano voice. And if we have a recurring pattern, that gets labeled as the linear intervallic pattern, or the LIP. This piece is an example of one. So if we look at the bass voice and the soprano voice, we see we have a G flat and a B flat, which is a third. And then here we have an F and a D flat, which is a sixth. Then when it starts over here, we have E flat to G flat, which is a third. And then we have D flat to B flat, which is a sixth. Now we have a recurring pattern of 3, 6, 3, 6. We call the LIP of this sequence the 3-6 LIP. Here's another example of linear intervallic pattern. This is variation 13 of the Handel-Chaconne. These LIPs are easier to show if we use the skeleton of some of these works rather than the actual pieces with all of the intricate writing. But if we look here, we have a G and a B flat, which is a third, or some might call this a tenth because it's a third plus an octave. And then here we have a C and an E, and that's a third or a tenth. And here we have C to E, which is a tenth. And then here we have F to A, which is a tenth. And in comparing the harmonic outline of this entire piece that precedes it is based on the notes that happen on beat 1 and the notes that happen on beat 3. So that's what we're going to compare. So we have this G to B flat, which is a tenth. We have this C to E flat, which is a tenth. We have this F to A, which is a tenth. We have this B flat to D, which is a tenth. We have this E flat to G, which is a tenth. And then we have this A to C, which is a tenth. So that's a linear intervallic pattern, a tenth every time. So the LIP of this would be 10. Objective 25.4 says define, identify, and label harmonic sequence. The learning resources will tell you that a harmonic sequence is one where a series of chords' root notes share the same interval distance relationship. There's a harmonic sequence contained in this excerpt. We're going to learn more about specific harmonic sequences in later objectives in the next module, but here we just want to identify that there is one. In the second stanza, we see a C major triad which first appears in an inversion, so C, E, G. We then see an F major triad in root position, F, A, C. Then we have a B chord, B, D, F. Then we have an E chord, E, G, B. The roots of these chords, C, F, B, E, all have the same interval relationship of a descending fifth. Therefore, we call that a harmonic sequence of root motion by descending fifth.